Hello and welcome again. Today we're going to be looking at photographing the big fellas, the herbivores, elephant, buffalo, rhino, hippo. These are some of the most photogenic animals in Africa, and there's many approaches we can take to photographing them to get a beautiful image. Here are some of them. Enjoy. So the first thing we're going to chat about is about going close. Just because they're big animals doesn't mean we always have to fit the whole animal in the frame. There's lots of quintessential elements of these animals that tell a beautiful story. The eyes, the ears, the horns and the tusks. All these parts of these animals are such an important part of what defines each species. The horns of a rhino, the tusks of an elephant, as well as the textures of the skin. Especially with elephant and rhino, those textures of the skin are quintessential. If you zoom up on them and you fill the frame with textures, you can quite easily tell that that's an elephant, and those textures can come out really beautifully. So don't be afraid to go in close and fill the frame with a tusk or a horn and an eye or an ear and an eye. Anything that shows clearly that this is an elephant, this is part of an elephant, it's what's important about an elephant. And the same thing goes with hippo and buffalo. Younger versions don't have as much textures as the older versions, but old bull buffalo and old bull hippo are covered in scars and marks that tell the story of their life. So go in close and fill the frame with these important textures and these markings. All those parts of an animal tell its story so beautifully. If a hippo yawns, it shows its tusks. Those tusks that are usually hidden when a hippo's mouth is closed. When they're visible, it exhibits what a hippo is all about. So go in close and capture these details. It really makes for a beautiful image. The second approach we can take is taking a low angle. Now you might be limited to how low you can get. Some places you can get out the car and you can actually shoot these animals on foot. Places like Mana Pools, you can get down, you can actually lie down. And what that does is improve your perspective on the animal. By looking up at it, it gives scale to the subject. It makes it more colossal. And that's what these species are. They're colossal animals, they're massive. So by getting a low angle and shooting up towards them helps exhibit how big they are and give glory to how big these animals are. So where you can, and if possible, get low. It might be as simple as dropping your camera out the car with your hand and shooting at a low angle. If you're lucky, you can get out the car and lie on the ground and shoot at a low angle. If you're even luckier, you're in the car and the animal is high, and then it's very easy and you're looking up at the animal. It gives a really good perspective on how to shoot these big animals. Another great method that I love to use with the big herbivores is framing youngsters against adults. This gives scale not only to the adults but to the youngsters as well. Shows how minute a youngster is against a massive adult, and it tells a beautiful story which has a lot of emotion. You feel a connection to the young one when you see how small it is compared to the adults around it. In the case of elephant especially, there's going to be lots of adults around it, so you can focus on that youngster and wait until the adults frame it in one way or another. And there's many stories there, not only about the size but about the protection that the adults give to the youngster. So there's a really beautiful story to be told there. Rhino are less common found in big herds, but again, the youngsters seldom leave their mother's side. So look for moments when the mother frames the youngster and you can get a really powerful and beautiful image. Another beautiful way to take pictures of the big herbivores is to fill the frame. What I mean by that is cancel out any distractions that might be nearby. This is a nice way to engage with a particular character. Cancel out any other members of the herd, cancel out any other species that might be lying around. It's just you and one character. It works best when the animal's facing you directly and you can fill the frame with that animal. You can crop bits and pieces of it, but the intention is to have a very strong engagement and confrontation with that particular animal, and is a great way of introducing your viewer to the species. One thing that's important, probably with all genres of wildlife photography, is to look out for essential behavior. These are behavioral traits that are unique to the species, and if you capture it, it can really tell a powerful story of what that species was all about and connect the viewer with what is going on. This might be as simple as exhibiting a herd of elephants and a young one, how protected they are over that young elephant, and giving a feeling of protection. It might be a charging black rhino. Black rhino are cantankerous and bad-tempered. Trust me, I know, I've spent a bit of time in a tree because of one. And we never want to induce a charge, but sometimes black rhino don't give you an option, and they'll do a mock charge towards the jeep. Hopefully you're in a jeep. If not, you better be quick on your feet or a good tree climber. But if you're viewing a black rhino, bear in mind that could happen. So be ready to capture that, because that is quite unique to a black rhino. And it could be a baby rhino that plays. Now, anyone that's watched a baby rhino, they're constantly running around and playing and exploring the areas around their mother. So try and capture that, because that's quintessential to a baby rhino, and it tells a story of what a baby rhino's life is like. An obvious one is a yawning hippo. One of the most recognizable displacement behaviors of any animal in the world is when a hippo opens his mouth and yawns. Look out for that. It's quite hard to predict, but be ready, and if you've got enough time, watch hippo, and if you've got a guide, he might be able to help you predict when a hippo is going to yawn. But if you can capture that, that is so hippo. Everything about that is hippo, and it tells a beautiful and strong story about hippo. So look for quintessential behavior. It could be dusting elephants. Elephants love dust bathing. Anyone who's been on safari is likely to have seen elephants dust bathing, and if you can capture them in that dust, it makes for a beautiful image. And the behavior is not necessarily unique to elephants. Many animals dust bath. But with elephant and the use of their trunk, they throw the dust everywhere. They kick up these massive dust clouds. That is such essential behavior, quintessential behavior of what elephants do. So do your best to capture that, the dust in the elephant, nothing more, and exhibit the marvel of dust bathing elephants. Elephants are a common subject to me, and they're so good to chat about when we talk about capturing essential behavior, because they have so many traits that are unique to elephant. The way they behave to us, the way they behave to each other. When they flap their ears and throw their trunk in the air and show their displeasement with your presence, that is part of elephant communication. It is so elephant. So be ready for those moments when they flick their trunk or ears and put on a show, and capture that, because it tells a story of elephant behavior, which is very interesting for the viewer to look at. Lastly, we're going to look at confrontation. These are big animals, so getting a confronting feeling in the image really engages the viewer with the picture. Now, you must never induce a charge or induce confrontation. What I mean by that is the viewer must feel confronted by the subject. We can't induce this. It's highly unethical and dangerous a lot of the time. But there are forms of what we call displacement behavior. When an animal confronts a human, whether in a jeep or on ground, and they'll show various behavior patterns. With hippo, they'll be yawning. That's very confronting for the viewer. It might just be as simple as curiosity. It could be a curious animal, a curious rhino, a curious baby elephant. Regardless, it's confronting the human, and if you can capture that and transfer it to the viewer who looks at the image later, it's a very powerful image. So look for moments where, whether you like it or not, the subject is confronting you in some way or another. It's acknowledging you, it's noticing you, and it might even be communicating with you through various levels of displacement behavior. Capture that, freeze that moment, because it makes a very powerful image. So there's a couple guidelines on shooting the big herbivores, a couple of ideas. Again, this is only a baseline, they're only guidelines. There's so many different ways and so many exceptions we can apply to shooting the big herbivores. But there's a few ideas. I hope they help, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.